So guys, a few days ago, I had the honor of hosting a very special guest. He is a best-selling author, the CEO of Remarkable, a consulting and advisory firm in the United States, and a thought leader on happiness. Dr. Van Vos is the author of the incredible mind opener, Fireproof Happiness, Extinguishing Anxiety and Igniting Hope. In this interview, he shares his thoughts on the power of hope in creating long-lasting happiness and combating depression, anxiety in our lives.
Okay, let's get into it. So, to begin, let's get into the inspiration behind your book, first of all. So, what motivated you to explore the themes of happiness, hope, and anxiety?
Yeah, it's a great question. I appreciate you asking it. Back when COVID started, I had a friend that challenged me to write a book on hope. And I thought, that's an interesting idea because everything that I had ever read about hope was deeply faith-based. The trilogy of faith, hope, and love, you see throughout really literature. Yeah, but I write and I speak to corporate entities around the globe. And oftentimes I can't go in with a message that has a lot of spiritual foundation, although that's very dear to my heart and that's who I am. And so I was curious and I wanted to do research to find out, was there a significant amount of research available on the power, on the efficacy of hope, and how does hope relate to happiness? Because everybody wants to be happy, right? But not many people know how to attain happiness. And so what I really wanted to do in the midst of COVID was to provide a tool, a resource that hopefully could be used by individuals to be able to face and embrace even the most challenging times of life. And that was the genesis of the book.
Okay. That was really interesting. But hope, from your perspective, did hope really, did it really give you the results you were getting? Like personally, before you wrote it in the book, did you deal with something that hope, brought out the lights for you?
Yeah, well, for me personally, hope is absolutely foundational. Like everybody, I think the thing that connects us in humanity is the fact that everyone has had to endure hardship and suffering at some level. It's the common denominator. It ties us together in this thread of humanity. So no matter what background you're from, no matter, what your personal life experiences, everybody has had challenges. I personally have been through many life challenges, and no need to go into some of those I've expressed in the book.
Yes.
Some of those are relational challenges. Some of those are emotional challenges. Some of those are vocational challenges. Many people have physical challenges. But that doesn't mean that you can't find happiness in the midst of the challenges of life, because you don't have to wait until life isn't hard before you make the choice to be happy. And hope for me is absolutely critical and foundational. I mentioned in the book that there's a great quote by John Templeton that says, "Happiness pursued eludes, but happiness given returns."
Yes.
And so I wanted to investigate the research, that link between hope and happiness. And I was amazed, Joseph, because there's a plethora of great research that has been done, that's scientifically validated and peer reviewed, that talks about the power of hope to improve happiness, productivity, health, longevity, and of course we unpack a lot of that in the book and tell people how they can attain that.
Yeah, that book, hope, is definitely a major subject in the book. So moving on, as the CEO of Remarkable and a former chief people officer, you bring a unique perspective to the topic of happiness. So I want to know, how do your professional experiences influence the insights shared in your book?
Well, happiness is so profound and hope is so connected to that. You may remember from the book that, we know that happy people do better work.
Yes.
It's a gift. And so the question is, why are people not more happy in what they do? there's a lot of research by the Gallup organization that says that most people don't find happiness and fulfillment in their job. It's a world phenomenon that only 20 to 30% of people are happy doing what they're doing. And for me, that's very unfortunate because I want to see people live meaningful, joyous lives and be able to find true value in what they do. And so again, that was part of it. And we also know from the research that the hopeful individuals are 14% more productive than their non-hopeful counterparts, which means that people who have hope are more productive in than their counterparts are in 7 days. The people who have hope earn a grade point higher. As a matter of fact, hope is a better predictor of success in law school than the LSAT, which is the entrance exam for the law school students. And so hope is powerful. The question is, how do you harness it? And one of the challenges for most people is, how do you define hope? Because hope is this ethereal idea that most people, if you ask them, they would tell you it's necessary for health and happiness, but they couldn't define it, much less be able to explain how do you pursue it. And so what I wanted to do was take the research, make it very simple, easy to understand, to synthesize the most salient points, and then be able to provide assistance to people who wanted to elevate their hope.
That's very, very deep. So I read something in the book. You talked about hope and wishful thinking. You demarcated them. You talked about the differences. So, but some people reading that book might still, think they're alike, they're similar. How can you separate them?
Yeah. So maybe you've heard the phrase before. Hope is not a strategy. But hope actually is the foundation for your best strategy. I mean, because think about it this way. If people don't have hope that what they're going to do is successful, then they're not going to be able to achieve any goal that they set because they're hopeless. In the same way, hope is far more than wishful thinking. Wishful thinking is passive. When you say, I wish this would happen, what you're saying is, I'm going to sit back and passively wish that the things that I want will occur. It's not active. It's not the whole definition of hope for me, and we unpack this in the book, is hope is a dynamic motivational strategy that's tied to inspirational goal setting. And a lot of people don't know how to set effective goals, and we might want to talk about that here in just a minute. But hope comes from exerted effort to achieve a goal.
Okay.
Happiness is not the result of attaining an end determination or destination. Hope and happiness is the pursuit of that. And so it's hope in the pursuit that produces the happiness and the sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. People can tell you all the time, they thought if I got this, I'd be happy, but they attained it and it didn't provide the happiness that they thought that it would provide. That's because happiness is in the doing. It's in the becoming. It's in becoming a better person. It's not in the accomplishment itself. It's in the character that's being developed in the process.
Wow, this is getting very well inside. So I want this other topic. In the book, you discuss the practical strategies for performing anxiety. So can you just highlight briefly a few techniques that readers can immediately apply into their lives?
Yeah, so we talk a lot in the book about practical wisdom and application. How can you elevate your hope? And when we talk about hope, part of what we do in the book is we deconstruct hope, what I call reverse engineering. Everybody understands, you take apart something, you analyze it, and you put it together again. And we talk about hope having four primary components. That's the work of hope, which is the cerebral, the goal setting, the how do I determine the destination. There's the will of hope, which is the visceral, the heartfelt, the passion, the excitement, the enthusiasm that you bring to it. It's the energy to accomplish the goal. There's the way of hope, which is the tactical aspect, the how, the when, and the where. And then there's the width of hope, which is the community that you choose to take with you on this journey. So in the book, I wanted to provide some application points, some things that you could do to elevate your hope. And so a couple of those, number one is set inspirational goals. We define, hope as a dynamic motivational system tied to inspirational goal setting. So the first thing you want to do is set inspirational goals. But here's the key, Joseph. It has to be attached to character development. It can't just be measuring numbers, because metrics don't provide value. Value provides the metrics. And so you have to have clear goals that are dynamically attached to what do you want to become? Who do you want to be? Not just what do you want to do, but who do you want to be? That's one thing. The second thing I would encourage people to do is take an inventory, a relational inventory, because the community that you surround yourself, you want to surround yourself with hope-filled people, because that's absolutely essential. If you find yourself in a situation where people around you are draining your energy, they're taking your hope away, it's going to be next to impossible for you to elevate your level of hope. So that community is profoundly important. And the next thing is you need to start beginning to establish certain routines, because that eliminates the debate. When you establish routines, even in small incremental areas, it begins to create a flywheel effect.
Yes.
And as you accomplish small goals, you get excited about that. You see the results of it, and it just compounds the energy that you're willing to put toward that effort. And before long, you begin to see yourself on a positive progression. I think those are three very helpful ideas that anybody can apply today to elevate their level of hope.
Wait, so the idea of fireproofing happiness, but that's a very deep name. So I would like to know, how did you come up with that title for the book?
About fireproofing hope? Well, I think sometimes we describe challenges in life. We say we've gone through the fire, right? Challenges are often, they can be very consuming. The name comes from the idea that sometimes when we go through hardships in life, we describe it as going through the fire, right? And fire can either consume you or it can refine you. And it's just like metal being purified. Difficult times can refine our character and make us better people as a result of that. And I wanted to share the idea that even the most challenging times of life, positive, good things can come out of that. Yes. And you don't have to be consumed with the fiery trials of life. So that's the genesis of the title of the book.
So fireproofing happiness, it's like long-lasting happiness. It implies resilience and steadfast strength in surmounting these odds that come to us every day. So how can individuals, people just build and maintain resilience in the face of life challenges, especially in today's world? It's fast-paced and very unpredictable.
That's a powerful question, Joseph. And I think, as we mentioned earlier, the quote from John Templeton, where he says, "Happiness pursued eludes, but happiness given returns." I think that's the essence. And we talk in the book about the difference between being a value extractor or a value creator. Happiness comes when you create value for other people. As a matter of fact, it's interesting because people who describe themselves as depressed or stressed or anxious, oftentimes it's because their focus is on themselves. They're concerned about their situation. They're concerned about what's going on in their lives. When we can flip that, we have the same profound impact when people begin to express gratitude for others, gratitude to God, gratitude to others, and they begin to create not a self-focused, but an others-focused life. I know for me, I'm the happiest as a husband when my wife is happy. Yeah. I'm the happiest as a father when my children are happy. I'm the happiest as a team leader when my teams are happy. Yes. So it's sort of like what we used to say about success. If you want to become successful, then make sure that everyone around you is successful. Because if they're successful, you'll be successful. And so I think that the the proof of happiness is, are we focused upon doing good for other people that makes their life more rich, more meaningful, and more fulfilling? Because when we do that, we become the beneficiaries of that. That's a big part of it. So when we set goals, it shouldn't just be goals for ourselves, but it's a goal and an attempt to make life better for those in our world. It's interesting. The less we're focused on ourselves, the more happy we become. The more we're focused on ourselves, the more anxious, stressed out, and depressed we become.
I'm learning a lot here. So, as a best-selling author, you likely encountered various stories and perspectives on this subject to talk about, and many other things. Like, you mentioned some inspiring stories, very inspiring, especially the one about the Marine soldier who was the third person to lose 4 limbs in combat, war combat, mentioning that he's now a motivator, a public speaker. So, can you just share one anecdote, one story from your own life or someone else that shows the transformative power of the principles of hope that I discussed in Fireproof Happiness?
In the book, and really one of my personal heroes is a guy in history by the name of Viktor Frankl. Quite a bit of time talking about Viktor Frankl in the book, because Viktor Frankl endured immense atrocities. Back in World War II, he was taken prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp. He was a doctor. He was a psychologist and neuropsychologist in Berlin, in Germany, and he was taken prisoner. And it was 4 different concentration camps he endured, but all of his worldly possessions were taken away. All of his family members were killed. But he survived the concentration camps and came out on the other side of that with a wealth of experience. And he actually wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And here's what he said. He said, everything can be taken away from you except one thing, the power of your personal choice. No one can rob you of the power to be the person that you're called to be. Now think about that. Here's a man whose entire life was devastated. Everything he owned in the world was taken away. But what allowed him to endure the atrocities of the concentration camp was to have the perseverance to see himself coming out on the other side with the ability to help other people with a message that was profound and based in this idea of hope. I think if I ever get discouraged, if I'm ever going through a difficult time, I think about Viktor Frankl, and I think about what he endured and how he came out on the other side to have a profound global impact to help people deal with difficulties in life.
That's very interesting story. But some people are born with this mindset, this drive to find happiness, to seek happiness. Some people do it through various means. Some people do it by making money. Some people do it by being more beautiful, by putting themselves up. But so most times they don't usually get to that destination. So how can you just tell the average person who hasn't read your book, to unscramble that mindset, that mentality of seeking happiness in places that happiness is never found?
Happiness is not a goal that you can set and achieve it. I mean, I have had the privilege of walking with a lot of different individuals across the span of my life. I've been with those who've had very, very little. I've been with those who have very, very much. But I can tell you this, that some of the most miserable people that I know have the most money. Money does not provide happiness. It doesn't. And oftentimes people say, well, if I just had this, or if I just had that, or if I just had this much money, I'd be happy. And that's not true. Because the more money you have, or the more money you make, the more you want.
Yeah.
And so happiness, is not a matter of money. It's not a matter of beauty. I gave up on the pursuit of beauty a long time ago. It's hard to stay beautiful when you have no hair. So I'm not concerned about that, and neither should anybody else, because that's not what provides lasting happiness. Lasting happiness is a deep stability of the soul that comes about when you know that your life is in pursuit of a profound passion that will do good for other people. Sometimes we think if we buy something, it'll make us happy, but it doesn't, because before long it breaks down, or a new one comes out, or it gets old, or, we shouldn't have paid that much for it, or whatever it may be. And so we have to move away from this idea that external things make us happy. The power of happiness is that it is within our control. It is a choice that we make. It has nothing to do with what's around us, but it has everything to do with how we're cultivating the strength of our spirit internally. Because we want to make sure that the internal strength overwhelms the external pressure, and that we're able to maintain a sense of equilibrium and stability, even when life puts great pressure on us. And one of the things we talk about in the book is, getting healthy, because sometimes, to build muscle, you have to push back against the weight. And sometimes we have to push back against the weight of the world that's bearing down on us with good form in order to create the muscle, the emotional, the spiritual, the relational muscle that's necessary to lift the load.
So, transitioning a bit, how do you balance the demands of being a CEO and also a philanthropist, a thought leader on happiness? How do you balance everything together?
Well, here's the key, and I encourage everyone. You want to balance your passion, those things that you really love to do, with your strengths, those things that you do really, really well. And then you want to combine that to solve problems. So your passion and your strength, those to solve problems, because the bigger the problem you can find and solve it, the more value you create. And the more value you create, the more invaluable you become. So the key is, am I solving problems? Am I helping people? Because money, happiness, success, they're all byproducts. You can't chase them direct. They're byproducts of doing good and creating value for them.
So, with your background in leadership and organizational development, how can businesses and workplaces foster a culture that promotes well-being and happiness for their employees as a whole?
So, when I talk with organizations about culture, there's another book that I wrote called Remarkable. And Remarkable is about customer service. It's about culture. And we created a trilogy. It's called the Litmus Test of a Remarkable Culture. And a remarkable culture is a place where people believe the best in one another. They want the best for one another. And so they expect the best from one another. And those three elements, the first one, believing the best in each other, speaks to trust. Is there a high level of trust in the organization? Because where trust is high, resistance is low. And so you want to develop a high trust environment. The second part, people want the best for each other, is about compassion and connection. It's about increasing the levels of hope. It's about creating an atmosphere that's inspirational and richly, relationally rich. And then expecting the best from each other is about accountability. Any organization or any culture that has those three components is what we call a remarkable culture. So those are the things you want to shoot for: trust, compassion and connection, and accountability. And here's the thing, Joseph, wherever people get together, you're going to have a culture. So there's a culture in the organization. There's a culture at your church. There's a culture in the ball club that you play with. There's even a culture in your home. So the question is that culture by design or is it by default? And one of the ways you create a culture by design is you infuse these ideas of hope and happiness into that culture so that you create an environment that's relationally rich and it inspires people to bring their best to work every day. So when I'm working with organizations, we focus a lot on culture, but we want to have a high hope culture. And a high hope culture has those definite characteristics that mark them.
So, the story of Victor Foco, don't think many people can endure such hardship. It's very hard to find happiness in the face of adversity. It's very difficult for people to be happy when facing problems. So, how do you want them to look at the problems? How do you want them to visualize the problem as a stepping stone for better things, as mentioned in the book?
Finding happiness in the midst of adversity is probably one of the most challenging tasks of life. When things occur in our lives that produce hardship, one of the first questions we often ask, Joseph, is why? Why is this happening?
Yes.
Why is this happening to me? But I want to suggest that you'll never, ever be able to answer that question successfully. There's no answer that you can provide that provides adequate comfort for the soul. Because when people are going through a difficult time, it's not enough just to say everything will be okay. There has to be more to it than that. So I think that what happens is, in those difficult times, we have to reframe our perspective. We have to see things differently. We have to embrace the reality of the situation, but we have to be able to see and persevere. What is life going to be like on the other side of this challenge? How can I grow in the midst of this challenge? Like you said, how can I change my mindset? Everybody endures hardship. But one of the things I think that we need to ask ourselves is not why is this happening to me, but here's a better question. What does this now make possible?
Okay.
That's the pivotal question. Not why is this happening, but what does this now make possible? Because creativity is what you get when all other options are taken off of the table. And I just know for me, when I've gone through difficult times, let's just say I'm in a transition, I've lost my job, or maybe I've gone through a divorce, or, heaven forbid, lose a dear family member to illness. All those are devastating blows. But when we begin to look at life and we say, what does this now make possible? It causes us to shift our focus from the problem to the possible options that can happen as a result of this. And it causes us to begin to explore different creative measures. And so if we see the challenges of life, not as a consuming fire, like we said earlier, but as an opportunity to refine our character and help us to become better people, what I often say is your present conditions can actually serve as conditioning for greater things to come. In other words, I truly believe that sometimes God uses hardships to refine our character and make us better, make us stronger individuals, and gives us the capacity to help other people who may go through similar circumstances. So I think part of it is being able to see life through a different lens and be able to reinterpret what's happening around us, so that then we have the ability to not only embrace reality, but to be able to take responsibility for building a brighter tomorrow. In the book, we talk about 4 principles, and that's the principle of positivity. And positivity is not enough to get you through the hard times, but you have to start with positivity, which just means that I believe that my tomorrow can be better than today. And then the second principle is responsibility. Responsibility says, I'm not a victim. And that's really important. I'm not a victim. I have a say in how my life unfolds. And then agility says, there's not just one way to get to a desired destination. There are multiple ways. I can choose a lot of different pathways to get there. Agility. And then the last one is embracing your reality, meaning that everybody has their own special set of life circumstances. Everybody has their own challenges, but we embrace the totality of reality. It means that it's not pie in the sky, wishful thinking, Pollyanna attitude, but it does say, hey, if I apply the principles of positivity, responsibility, agility, and embrace my reality to craft a brighter tomorrow, then I can take ownership of my internal world and I can create something powerful that that can combat anything that comes against us. Because remember, Viktor Frankl said, everything can be stripped away except your power to choose. We have the choice. We have the opportunity to choose how we will respond to life's difficulties.
Yeah. So that part about agility, I actually applied that a lot of times after reading the book. You said there's not just one way to solve a problem. If one way gets blocked, you go to the next. So that was very beneficial for that person. So let's shift to some lighter questions. If you could offer one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Don't expect life to be easy, because easy does not lead to happiness. Easiness oftentimes leads to passivity. So I would speak to my younger self and say, brace yourself and prepare yourself to go through challenging times, because it's in challenging times you craft purpose and meaning and fulfillment in life.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you wrote the book, you started writing the book on COVID during the COVID period. Does that mean it took you just 3 years or so, or 2 years rather, so you just come up with all the research and everything and put it into a book? I know authors, they take a lot of time to write a book that has this amount of value. How were you able to?
It was a challenging process, but I did start writing the book during COVID. You're right, and it takes a long time to write a book. But what happened was, prior to COVID, my speaking schedule was full. I was going to be traveling. 2020 was going to be a banner year. It was going to be our best year ever. I was going to be on the road speaking to groups all across the country and around the world. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, nobody gathered together. All travel stopped. So my calendar went from being completely packed to almost empty. You're talking about challenging. It was challenging for countless people around the globe. It was certainly challenging for me, because my whole livelihood was based upon traveling and speaking to groups. And so everything was shut down. And that's why a friend of mine said, you need to write a book on hope. So when I had the time on my hands, I had a choice. I could either sit around idly and go, oh, woe is me. Why is this happening? My world is falling apart. I have no income. Or I can use it productively, and I can see a brighter tomorrow. And I know this isn't going to last forever. So I want to do something now that will help people, not only now, but will help people in the future. And so I took that available time, and it was a crash course. I mean, I gathered 200 research papers. I went through all the minutia. I compiled all the information that I wanted to communicate, and I started writing the book. And I've never written a book so quickly, but never written a book, I think, that's been more impactful, because the message is something that the world needed to hear. And so I had the time on my hands, and I set a goal. I applied all the principles of the book. I set an inspirational goal. I said, what do I want to become in this process? I gathered a group of people around me that helped me refine the book, people to work with me on the book. And rather than working through a regular publishing house, that was the first book that I decided to self-publish, because the books I had printed before were with publishing houses, but I wanted to get it to market quicker. And it was just an endeavor of love. It was, a project that was time compressed, because it was a message that I wanted to get out quickly.
Okay. So you mentioned that you should expect life to be easy. So someone who's, let me say, is having a simple life, his life is going smoothly, everything's happening as expected. There's no setbacks, everything's just going fine. I mean, do you expect that person to be cautious of something bad, or do you expect the person to just enjoy the moment and go with the flow, or should it be awaiting that moment so that it's going to come crashing down? Or
if life is easy, then enjoy it, because things change rapidly. And I would not say don't be a doomsday, person or a naysayer. Enjoy it if it's going smoothly, but use that time to prepare for challenging times, because they will come. And here's an interesting statement. Difficult times reveal what good times conceal. Sometimes when people are going through easy times, they don't take the time to develop and to prepare. And when hard times come, they're not ready. So I would say use the good times to prepare and make sure that you're ready to confront whatever challenges may come. Enjoy it for the moment, but know that we're always going to face difficult times.
So on a more personal note, outside of your professional pursuits and your goals professionally, how do you unwind and find joy in everyday life?
I love being around the water.
Okay.
So I can go to a stream and go fishing. I love to do that. I love to sit by a mountain stream. I love to go, to the water if there's a lake nearby, or if I can get to a beach. I just enjoy being outdoors. I think there's something about nature, just breathing fresh air, that's really invigorating for the soul. And for me, being around a fire, interestingly enough, being around a fire and being around water is very therapeutic for me. So I unwind that way, but I also unwind in physical activity. I love to get out and be adventuresome, whether that's, taking care of myself through a long hike, or just getting out and playing ball with the kids. That's refreshing for me.
So looking ahead, do you have any upcoming projects or books, publications that your followers should expect, or anyone you are particularly excited about unveiling? Can you share with us?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking that. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed Fireproof Happiness, but I do have another book that is coming out. There are two books, actually. I wrote a book several years ago called Remarkable, and it's done extremely well. It's about culture and customer service, and it's going to be released again. Third edition is going to be released in April the 2nd, as a matter of fact. So people can pre-order that if they like to. And then I have a brand new book project called Make Life Good that comes out in August. And the full title of it is You've Made a Good Living. Now Make Life Good. And it's about giving. It's about building a legacy. It's about doing good in the world. Because to your point, you asked the question a while ago, money does not provide happiness. Doing good provides happiness. And so it's about how do we do good, and it answers the question, why do I do what I do? And is it meaningful? Because I think unless you can answer the question, why do you do what you do, you're not yet living on purpose.
Well, I'm just glad you were able to join us. We gained a lot of eye-opening information, and even someone who hasn't read your book, just so informed about happiness and everything about it. So, and the people that are watching this video, this is just a tip of the iceberg. See, in this book, the entire life-changing aspects on this topic of happiness. And happiness is something that everybody wants. And many people have a different mindset, a different mentality on happiness. And that is something that we all have to scramble, we all have to change if we eventually want to have fireproof happiness. So if you haven't already, check out Fireproof Happiness by Dr. Randy Ross on all major book retailers. And I also include the link in the description of this video. So Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. So,
Joseph, it has been a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you for being a cheerleader of the messages of Fireproof Happiness and our other books as well. I wish you all the best in your every endeavor.
Sincerely speaking, that was one of the best conversations I've had with anyone this year. It was so value loaded, and I can assure you that getting the book Fireproof Happiness by Dr. Randy Ross is going to be one of your best decisions of this year. This video is sponsored by onlinebookclub.org. Onlinebookclub.org is a book club website with the best professional review team in the world. If you're an author and you would love to get your book to a wider audience, Online Book Club has the largest congregation of book lovers in the globe. Thank you so much for watching. See you next week.